Hello everyone, welcome back to another Dark Souls 2 Scholar the First Sin walkthrough video. As promised, this video will have 3 separate boss fights. There's actually only 3 bosses in this DLC, and I will do all 3 in this one video. That's just kind of how it worked out. So last time nothing really exciting happened, I just spent most of the time showing hidden things like where to find some bonfires that are hidden behind some walls and what switches you need to activate when and what they do and hidden spells and stuff. So right now I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up. Really just because all I'm doing here is I mentioned in the last video that there was kind of a shortcut elevator back to the first bonfire from here, and I wanted to show that because I think it's not really important. You're probably not going to use it, but I did want to show that it exists. I was talking about it, but I didn't actually show it, so run back here. You see this elevator is different than the one I just took up, and this one, when you take it all the way up, will take you to the first bonfire. So no, I wasn't crazy, and yes, this does do exactly what I said it does. The first video I was like, oh yeah, we'll come back up here later, and then I completely forgot about it. So now I need to warp to a different bonfire. So how I decided I'm going to do the boss fights is I'm going to do the optional one first. Now the optional one is kind of in a crappy location. Not a lot of people like getting there. The boss fight itself is also not the easiest, especially by yourself, because it's 3 people versus you. But they're not really bosses so much as they are like other, kind of like other players. So imagine your character versus you, except there are 3 of you against you. And it's not really your character, it's a different character that they built specifically for that fight. So I'm going to do that. It's an optional fight. I think it's pretty fun. I haven't done any of these boss fights in a long time, so bear with me. I'm probably going to cut the video so you don't see me do a fight for 15 minutes and die. Killing that soldier, he dropped his gauntlets. I wanted to point out the Sanctum Knight leggings I picked up last time. I didn't actually show what they do. I said that they have an effect on them. It's reduced falling damage. So I wanted to make sure I showed that because in the last video I said I would probably show that sometime. And somehow I ended up thinking about it. Usually I forget about that stuff, and then 3 videos later I'll tell you. So what we need to do for this optional boss fight, and a couple useful items, is kill these guys and get across this bridge. Because there was a locked door that we couldn't get past before. We needed a key, and now we have that key, but we picked it up way later. I guess not way later, but we did pick it up later. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I forgot about another item. So next video, I'll have to run back here, and I'll speed up the walk so that I can get there. But I'm probably not going to really describe it. There's a ring I missed called Flynn's ring. I never picked it up. So yeah, next time I'll make sure I go and grab that. If you really want to know what it does and want to get it, you can always go to the wiki, but really what it does is the lower equipment, the lighter the equipment you have, so the lower the equip load that you have for your character, the more damage you do. Now, I want to say it's like a ratio, like if you have a really high equipment load, so extremely high vitality, which is not to be confused with vigor, which is health. Vitality is carry weight. And I know I screwed that up in a different video, but if you have really high vitality, I think as long as you're within like a certain ratio, it doesn't really matter how heavy the armor is. Just so much that, like, let's say you're under 25% equipment load, then you get a extra 20 points of damage or something. So 25% of 100 carry weight is 25 pounds. Or whatever. Carry weight, because they don't have units. That's 25 of 100. Or if you only have like 50, you know, then it's a lot smaller. You know, whatever, 12 and a half units of equipment load that you can have. And the wikis all talk about that, so if you really want the specifics and all the math and all the testing they've ever done on that item, go ahead and look it up. Called Flynn's Ring. F-L-Y-N-N, I think. So up in this tower, we got an item called the Sanctum shield. And I don't show it in this video, but it's a shield catalyst. Can be used for hexes and miracles, I think, but not sorceries. So it's like the shield chime that you pick up in Grave of Saints right before the gutter. You have to make a really ridiculous jump. It's like that, but better, pretty much. And after getting that, there's really no point to lighting the torches, but that's what I did. You go down the ladder, you run across here, and you're gonna get invaded. This guy's not too difficult, if I remember correctly. Except he does that. He's like the only invader smart enough to actually make it so that you can't heal yourself. Except you can still use life gems, so it doesn't really work out. You can always use a life gem to heal yourself. So actually, he's got me pretty good, and I can't heal. So I'm gonna go ahead and just use life gems. It's kind of cheating, but I don't want to die, and I'm trying to parry this guy more than I am just trying to kill him, and I probably shouldn't. I think parrying is more fun, though. It's way more satisfying if you can pull it off. There we go. Now I can use my flask if I get far enough away. Somehow that one missed, so I can still heal with a flask. Probably not try and parry. It's gonna screw me over. Okay, well, I managed to get in anyway. If it says cannot use bonfire, just wait a second. That's him warping out. They don't want you resting when there's an invader. And hitting this switch activates another elevator that we couldn't use before. And now that's going to rise up, and that's kind of a shortcut between the second bonfire and here, so we don't have to go across the bridge and up some ladders and all the way over here. We can just take this elevator up. And actually, there are a couple useful items if you go down this elevator and kind of hop off halfway. So I'm going to do that too. So you get off there. If you're a hexer, you're going to love this spell. Dark Greatsword is like Soul Greatsword, except a little bit better. It might be a little bit shorter range, and I don't think you get as many castings, but it releases a projectile, in addition to swinging like a greatsword, kind of. So like Soul Greatsword, you get that huge area hit swing. This gets a smaller hit, a little bit less castings, but also gets a projectile that emerges from that hit. It's a pretty fun spell. So before I actually go and do this boss, I think I should probably grab a few things. Just to make my world a little easier. So, there's really nothing in the forest. I'm just grabbing this seed here real quick. I've been invaded enough times, I figured I better check. What I really want to do is I'm going to go to McDuff here and buy, like, all the iron arrows I can, because they're cheap. And then I'm going to go to Gavlin and buy a ton of poison arrows. Since that's all boring and you don't need to watch me do that, I'm just going to speed that up. At first I didn't think I was going to buy max arrows, but I just went ahead. That way I wouldn't have to come back here and buy more arrows. I should be pretty much set for the rest of the game. I buy like 900 some iron arrows and then another 300 poison arrows. That should get me through to New Game Plus. Okay. Just going ahead here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first kind of go through here slowly. Kind of show you what this area is about and why it's not fun. So over here you have this Atlas dude. He was a shade before. And then they have this Andre guy that's just kind of here hanging out. He's new. And these statues we've seen before, and the optional bosses in each DLC allow... they were the ones that you could do co-op with when people didn't have the DLC, so that people that did have the DLC could summon them in. And it was a huge, huge thing, so that you could all do a boss together. So this was the boss that you were allowed to summon outside people into your DLC game and do. And I really wasn't planning on falling down here, but you can already kind of see what's going on. There's just a lot of things happening. Basically, all of these red statues, I blew up some last time and unlocked a hidden path, kind of. All of these red statues don't shoot poison. They shoot this petrification gel or whatever. It petrifies you is the point. And that can kill you and drain like a ton of your maximum health, and you're going to want to use a human effigy if that happens. So this is me just running through, trying to destroy some of these statues and not die from all these soldier guys, because I have like 6 of them attacking me here. But I die anyway, because I really wasn't planning on going down here. So let me speed it up again. So it's just going to be me, you know, using a human effigy real quick. And then also I'm going to go ahead and kill those guys. I'll skip all the killing process. I assume that you can find your own way to kind of deal with the guys. I think the best way really is to use a bow to kill as many guys as you can before you drop down. I only made this ×2 speed, that way we can still kind of see what's going on here. Because at ×3 speed it is almost impossible to tell what's happening. I'm going to put the torch away. You really don't need to light up any of this, I'm just doing it because, and that's probably a reason why I'm dying. Go ahead and take care of these guys here. Alright, now down here, statues don't break with arrows. You got the lizard thing, but he's not really cooperating. Not at a good angle to actually kill. Kill at least one soldier down there. And I lit the torch again because I, again, want to take the fire down here with me, because there are a couple of these things that you can light on fire. But I haven't found one yet. I do find one eventually. And then I put the torch away because then I don't have to worry about using a flame butterfly. Even though I have like 14 of them, it doesn't matter. I'm picky like that, and that's kind of the bane of my existence at points. One less guy would be helpful. There's also an archer. I just got hit there. Just as I said that. With an arrow to the side. He's kind of chilling out over here. I'll deal with him pretty soon. Clear out a lot of these statues to make my job a little easier. Because it only takes about 7 or 8 hits for me to get petrified. And if you have low petrification resist, then it's probably going to take even fewer for you. Might take you 3 or 4, and that's where this place really sucks. These stupid statue turtle things, I hate. Let me get this chest. Petrified something times 3, that's kind of nice. You can trade that in with the crows and get something potentially useful. Like a really powerful whip called the Old Whip. That's a potential. Or Demon's Great Hammer. Or, I guess White Ring is another one, I think. But the White Ring really isn't that useful. And those are kind of the main ones you'd want. Then there's a lot of upgrade material. You can get, you know, Petrified Dragon Bone and Titanite Chunks and stuff. And all of that fancy, good stuff. You'll get better stuff if you trade in Petrified Somethings. Then you can trade in, like, Smooth and Silky Stones, and then the small Smooth and Silky Stones, and you can even trade in little Prism Stones. So, but each one, the harder it is to get, the better your item potential, the more likely you're going to get something that's actually worth it. The more common stuff, you probably won't get much. Like, I think a Prism Stone, the best thing you can get is a human effigy. So, yeah, Petrified Somethings are kind of nice. Is it really worth this whole cave to just get? No. It's not really worth coming down here just for that. But there's a boss fight, and even the item that you get after the boss isn't that great. But I like the boss fight. Even though it's kind of hard, that's kind of why I like it, actually. Is it's somewhat challenging. And there's nothing back here. Okay, let me just keep running ahead here. Down this path. I'll light that on fire, just to have that. And around here, there's a lot of these petrifying things, even down here. They're kind of hidden in these crevices, like here's 2 of them. You can also get trapped back here and die, so I wouldn't really recommend trying to break them. It won't make your job that much easier. That one doesn't break. Another one of these worm things. A little bit harder to kill, but you don't even have to kill it. If you go right past it, you're free. And this is the boss door. But since I've used a lot of my Estus flasks and stuff just kind of killing things, I'm going to skip that. Now, I do actually die a couple times, which is why my souls have changed, which is why I'm hollow. And again, that's because I really haven't played this in a long time, so it's actually kind of new to me, going back and playing these bosses. So, I did die a couple times to them already. I challenged them, and this time I got it down. So I skipped all that because me dying to those bosses, I probably had a good 15-minute run and then another like 5-minute run against them. And then I died. So Actually, and then I got petrified. So, yeah, skipping all of that will save, like, 30 minutes of me just not... Well, not 30 minutes. At least 20 minutes of me just not, you know, doing really anything productive. There's no souls there because I got petrified. Okay, so what's the deal with these guys? 3 random people, drastically different builds. They're not, you know, really people, but 3 characters designed for drastically different types of play are now kind of a boss. It's kind of cool. Usually I think this is referred to as like the grave robber fight, just because that's like the first name and probably the most catchy one, other than like, you know, the old explorer and the ancient soldier. There's you know, I think in the wikis and stuff they call this boss like all the names. There's no real short way other than what the community loves to call the gank squad, because ganking is teaming up on one person and trying to kill them. So that's pretty much what they're doing here. Imagine if this was PvP and you had 3 guys following you. So really, as you can probably guess, the trick here is to try and split them up and deal with one at a time if you can. I typically like to go for the archer first, just because the archer can be the most annoying. He can sit back there and shoot a great arrow at you and knock you over when you're about to attack. He can interrupt a lot of things. So I like to try and deal with him if I can, but this is all pretty difficult because the other 2 people are always going to try and attack you when you're attacking somebody. The archer is the dude on the bottom. I'll go ahead and hit him a couple times. Maybe just once. If you can get a parry and a riposte, that's cool. It's kind of difficult though. And my strategy to fighting them solo is to try and get them to jump in the water and then run out. The only problem with that strategy is that sometimes they don't, and then you're in the water, they're not, and they're like up above you and they do like plunging attacks and that kind of stuff. So really it's just the 2 melee people will always kind of be separated from the archer. So take out the archer first and you should have an easier time. Don't forget to use spells or bows or throwable items like throwing knives or anything that you can use to your advantage here, really. The archer will pretty much dodge most projectile attacks, so only melee is really the good thing to use against him. He also doesn't have a ton of health, so if you can have a very high damaging melee weapon, that'd be really nice. Something like a club, or, you know, I guess if you have a really, really good dexterity weapon. But typically heavier weapons are actually probably better for this archer. And he's usually pretty aggressive, but apparently not until you make the first swing and miss. So it's kind of a tricky fight. Once the archer's down, you got the 2 other guys following you, and they won't do any ranged things at you ever. So the real trick with them, I guess, is to just try and use projectiles and catch them off guard. An okay spot to heal is right about here at the bottom of this ramp, because the archer usually can't hit you because it's mostly surrounded, and then the other guys are following you and they usually fall down into the water and are moving kind of slow. So, obviously the Havel clone here, the ancient soldier guy, he's gonna be slow and bulky, but he's gonna do a ton of damage. So, you could try to kill him first. I typically deal with the Grave Robber in the Alva armor with the dual katanas, because he always seems to rush ahead of the Havel clone here. Plus, he doesn't have a shield or anything, so it's basically, can you get a hit in on him without being hit yourself? He's also a very good candidate for a bow. You can kind of see the arrows getting kind of stuck, so it's really important to try and get these guys to follow you. I kind of got them running the reverse way of what I want to do. I find going in this kind of loop is a little bit better. That guy's gonna block that arrow. He pretty much always has his shield up unless he is attacking. So the other one, who doesn't have a shield, is gonna be a much better option for projectiles. Now, he'll be able to dodge, so you might not actually hit him, but hopefully you can get in a situation where he's attacking and you can hit him with something. Since I have a bow with a ton of arrows, I'm not really afraid to use that. So I'm actually going to try and use some poison arrows, because they don't have extremely high poison resistance. But you can see he's wanting to dodge most of those attacks. Here we go. He's trying to switch weapons or something. He's acting up. But at this point, he's already poisoned. So it was kind of worth taking that hit, because now he's going to lose a bunch of health, and if I can help speed him along, that'll be great, but if I can't get them apart, then whatever. So I'm going to try arrows again. Looks like it's somewhat working. Guess the Grave Robber is actually a she. Can't really tell, but I did just hear, like, the female voice when I heard her. So really the strategy is one at a time and try to exploit their weaknesses. Obviously the bow guy is probably not going to be best at close range combat. He's not going to have a shield. He might have a good close range weapon, but he's going to be trying to fire the bow most of the time. So if you can get a couple hits on him before he switches, that's awesome. Then with the Grave Robber, she apparently doesn't really block anything or dodge poison arrows that well. Try and use poison arrows or poison throwing knives and maybe you can get her. And then once you have the Havel clone, it's just battling somebody in somewhat heavy armor. He wasn't blocking there either, so I'm able to take advantage of poison again. His biggest thing is going to be his damage though. And he does heal, I forgot about that. But he does heal. Which the poison seems to be countering that healing, so that's really, really nice. As always, with anybody who's guarding all the time, use a guard break. Because then you can get a nice critical hit on them. And that'll end that fight. I didn't have the gesture I wanted. Oh well. So that's that fight. It's just optional, 60,000 souls. You really don't get a whole lot from it. So if you want to do that fight, go ahead. The only things you get are this flower skirt that you get from this chest, which does have an effect. I can't remember what it is, but it's not all great. And then this Blackwood Balm, whatever thing, which is another consumable. So for those kind of rewards and the struggle you have to go to get there and beat them, it might not really be worth it. But I like to do that stuff because it's fun, it's optional, it is a boss fight. So I always like to do boss fights. They all have music and they all have a strategy and all, you know, these guys are actually difficult. So if you want some sort of a challenge, try doing that one by yourself. It's pretty nice. So yeah, the video did glitch there a little bit. I spent some time running around because I thought I missed some stuff. Specifically, I thought I missed this Drake Blood armor that these guys are wearing, but I didn't. It's actually up ahead. So you're going to notice the difference in souls, you're going to notice a couple other things too. So that was just me running around trying to figure stuff out because it's been a long time since I played, so that was another like 15 minutes of this video I was able to cut out. And you want to watch immediately to your left. I wasn't sure what side he was going to ambush from, but there is an ambush. So this guy here, same as every other Drake Blood, he seems to be preferring to two-hand his sword, but he'll probably switch. There's no reason why you shouldn't use your flasks either, because when you get their armor, it's not like you can go to the boss that way. You have to literally pass this bonfire to get to the boss. So if you want to heal or whatever when fighting these guys, go ahead. So when running over here, you want to take this hallway back here into this room with all these chests that are open, except for this body that has the Drake Blood armor. And that armor is pretty good stuff. I would say wear that if you want to wear some medium heavy armor. I think it's kind of heavy. And we can't get to the boss from here. We have to actually go up and then drop down. There's no good way down from here. Not even when wearing a ring or anything. See, that's a really long fall. And even if we could survive that, we'd have to heal because the ring doesn't negate fall damage, it just reduces it. So, like I said, you're gonna run past the bonfire anyway, you might as well rest. So once you drop down here, you can't go back up unless you teleport back using Homeward Bone or something. So just follow this path, and as long as you hit these, you know, kind of halfway points down, you should be okay. It's if you miss that is when you get hurt a lot. So back here we have Benhart, who you can summon here if you didn't already have him 3 times. These messages are just talking about whatever. It's cool to see these engravings on the wall, though. And running up ahead here, we should have this Steelheart Ellie. She'll be around in the next DLCs too. So you'll see her again. And she prefers to use like a fist weapon, and she doesn't have a lot of health, so she's not really that great, but she is a distraction. I always love the atmosphere before a boss fight, especially if it's singing like this.
You are not deserving of the mire.
So yeah, really, that's all she really says. There is a huge lore background between her and some other people in the game. And I'm not really going to get into that right now. At least not too much of it. Basically, from the first game's DLC, there was a boss called Manus, Father of the Abyss. And when he died, it was said that, like, the Abyss split up, or shards of his soul split up, and kind of scoured the land seeking power, or whatever. And so she's supposed to be one of these, like, embodiments of Manus, kind of. And there are more like her, too. So it's a pretty interesting story. The thing that makes her difficult is her dark magic is pretty powerful, but it's also this summoning thing, which, thankfully, she summoned skeletons the first time. But she has a chance of actually summoning Velstadt. Like, pretty much real deal Velstadt, it's just that he has less health. And he doesn't do, like, his dark attacks and stuff. But he's just as big, and he does just as much damage, and he's kind of a pain. If she does summon skeletons like this, or I think she can summon, like, pigs or something. If she does summon those, then you want to keep one alive, because if you destroy all those enemies, she tends to try and summon some more backup immediately. If you keep them alive, then you have to kind of wait until she decides she wants to summon again. Which, as long as there's one alive, they tend to not let her summon other, you know, reinforcements. So this skeleton's gonna be a pain, but he's not Velstadt. So I'm just gonna kind of keep him alive. Hopefully I don't kill him, or he doesn't get in my way too much. Other than that, she's got this area of effect where if you're too close, she kind of explodes, it does some damage, and then it drains your health while you're inside. Her axe that she's using does a ton of damage too. And this pyromancy really isn't a big deal. As long as you keep moving, you should be okay. Sometimes she'll summon it in front of you like that. She summons like two, I think. One to your left, one to your right. So really just kind of keep moving and they shouldn't get you. This darn skeleton seems to be causing a lot more trouble than I thought he was going to. He's got this incredible range that is actually managing to hit me. And that summon is Velstadt. Right now I can tell you that because it's a big, huge, you know, puddle of whatever, mud. So kill the skeleton. That'll make your job a lot easier. And there's Velstadt. So maybe he doesn't do quite as much damage, but he is just as terrifying. He is just gonna charge you and basically be a huge melee. It's almost like fighting two bosses at once. So really, if you get in a situation where she summons Velstadt, which you probably will get into because that seems to be what she favors summoning the most. You don't really want to focus on him too much. I believe as long as he's around, she doesn't summon another anything. I don't think she summons skeletons or pigs. If she does summon anything, it is like a skeleton. It's not going to be like a second Velstadt. Or at least I'm about 90% sure on that. You know, she might... The wiki will tell you that probably the best method of dealing with her when you're solo is trying to take out the summoned thing. I tend to disagree because from when I've been playing, if you take out the summoned thing, she'll just summon another thing within a couple moves. So I tend to find as long as you can dodge whatever she summons, whatever attacks or whatever, you should be good to go. The toughest thing about her is that she does like all these different attacks, but they're always a trick of some kind. Like she summons 2 of those flame pyromancies. She summons enemies to come attack you. She teleports behind you. She does an AoE that not only damages you, but drains your health too. All these things, you know, like a normal boss does an AoE, typically you can get up and then you can go run and attack them when they're done or something. Not her. So I recommend for this fight, especially solo, is studying her attacks, learning how to dodge those attacks, and then, you know, obviously she's going to have a Velstadt summon. So if you can remember how you dodge Velstadt, great. If you don't, spend some time dodging him. And I wouldn't kill the summon immediately because that's kind of a... Like I said, that's usually an issue for me anyway. You can go ahead and try it though, if it might work for you. It's gonna be a tough fight by yourself. You can try and summon a Phantom, but they make the fight a little bit harder. So, anyway, once you beat her, you're gonna continue down this path. And there will be a new bonfire, and yes, there is another boss up ahead. So immediate back-to-back boss here. Because you might have been wondering, well, if we went to the optional area and we're kind of at the end of the main area, then where else do we go for a boss here? So I'm going to make sure I spend my souls and level up, because I've been noticing things have been a little bit difficult. Enemies are just one more hit away from dying or whatever. So I think I'm going to throw my souls into dexterity. A nice 5 levels in dexterity will help, especially since this thing scales an A in strength and an A in dexterity. So now we're going to go immediately back. I'm not going to waste too much time. This video is already pretty long, but that's okay. And from here, you got a couple NPC summons to help you if you want. But I'm just going to go ahead and start this fight. So that dragon that's been flying around doing his own thing, we've now just officially woken up and pissed him off. So let's go ahead and take him out. That's a bad start to this fight. His projectile attacks like that have a pretty large explosion radius, and they leave behind a toxic cloud for a good minute after he uses them. So you want to make sure you definitely roll, like now, to get away from that attack. Then when he flies straight at you like that, try to pick a side and then roll that way. So like, say you want to go to his left, roll left, right at the right moment. It's going to be kind of tricky timing, but once you get that, you're good. And he should just land, and you might be able to hit him a couple times. The real trick to this fight is he likes to use that fireball attack a lot, and that can cover the arena in toxic pretty quick. So keep in mind where those are at. And like I said, after a short period of time, it should go away. Okay, fire breath attack like that. The best solution for that is to either just block it, because you should be able to block it without taking too much damage, or you can roll through it. So I didn't do that, and I already had a substantial toxic buildup. So yeah, I got intoxicated, but that's okay. Life gem will typically cancel most of that out, and then you can drink a flask to help you out too. Oh, bite attack. And this is going to be most of the fight, is him using those fireballs and you dodging a flying attack. There, I blocked that fire breath. I didn't take much damage, and I don't really have a fantastic shield for that either. Yes, trick is, if he does that, like, head attack, where he swings his neck around, he's gonna land back down, and that will hurt you a lot. That timing can be tricky. When I do this fight, actually, he lands on me quite a bit, and it does hurt me a lot. That's probably where most of my flasks go. So, don't think that you can just go ahead and stand under him, because you can't. I'd say probably the best solution for him is to try and get near him and bait that neck swing attack, and then like this, and then don't stay under him, or if you do get under him, try to roll it right. It's kind of a problem. I thought I'd rolled it right there, and I didn't. Occasionally, he'll do different breath attacks, and if you can run in and hit him when he's doing that, that'd be nice. Get some extra damage. Or if he stands up on his hind legs and breathes down, you can run behind and hit his tail. And his tail will take reduced damage, but I believe you take less durability damage. Because that's another key thing about him. Here's a breath attack. This is a nice one to go ahead and just hit him a couple times. Here's this breathing down attack I was just talking about. Hit the tail. Anyway, key thing about him is this fight actually degrades your durability really quick. Even with bracing knuckle rings and that kind of stuff, you might need some repair powder with you. His whole body degrades your weapon really fast, except for his tail, I think degrades it normally, but he takes some reduced damage. And you can cut off his tail. There's no real benefit to it, but you can do it. And then I guess he can't really do tail attacks. But then once that's gone, you gotta attack the rest of his body anyway. I wasn't able to get to him that time. If you've played Dark Souls 1, he's got very similar moves to Calamite, the optional dragon in that game in the DLC. So if you've kind of got that moveset down, you can do the same here. Like that flying attack is like Calamite a lot. Some of these breath attacks are very similar. Not the fireball one, but like the swooping fire breath down. Standing up on his hind legs, that whole thing, that's like Calamite too. If you can, when he lands, sometimes you can get a head hit in. And that really doesn't do much more damage. But it is a free hit, and he shouldn't really get at you too much. And most of the fight is just waiting for him to land. And then finding an opportune time to attack. So, like a bow will actually be pretty helpful here. So I'm finding out that I'm draining through most of my flasks, and he's not really even halfway dead. So I'm going to go ahead and try and use a bow a little bit. A fire breath like that, if you can be close when he does that, you can attack his neck, and that'll make things a little bit easier. But he doesn't like to do that kind of stuff when you're close. That's a fire breath. I'm actually finding it better when he does the neck swipe to just stay in front of him and then try and get a hit on his head or something like that. Ooh, fireball. I don't know how I didn't get hit there, but I guess Dark Souls was merciful. There's a free hit. If you summon a phantom for him, like one of the computers, there's like a Dragon Knight guy. He's got a lot of health, but he can't really hit him. He can't hit Sinh a lot, because Sinh flies all the time. Then there's a cleric lady who heals you most of the time. She's mostly support. And she tries to attack, but she doesn't really do any damage against him. So, honestly, if you don't really have another person to go with you, choose the knight guy. And even then, I would almost say do it by yourself, because that might be easier. Another breath attack. That breath attack, that one in particular, will always be straight on, and he won't move his head. So as long as you get to the other side of his breath, you should be able to use a bow or something. Okay, this one where he does swing his head around like that, that seems to be a more medium range or close range fire breath attack. You can actually get close to him when he's doing that, kind of like the ancient dragon. You can kind of get close to him when he's doing that. You can get a few hits on him. His melee attacks are really strong, but if you can dodge those, then you might actually have an easier time. But they are very strong, and him just falling down from the sky like that and landing on you will do about the same as him swinging his left arm. So he's actually a really strong boss. There we go, I finally got that timing right there. And yeah, I was a little too close to that fire breath attack. Otherwise, he probably would have been dead by now. That's probably where the bow and arrow will come in handy. Finding in terms of camera angles, it's almost better to not be locked on. That's at least my experience from this video here. So find whatever really works for you. A bow does help. So this whole DLC, a bow has been like the answer to everything. So if you have a bow, get some arrows and it'll help you out a lot. Now this weird screeching and glowing thing is actually your first crown, other than Vendrick's crown, but we're not going to include that because that doesn't sound as awesome. Crown of the Sunken King. That was your whole goal, was to come down here and get this crown, which has been guarded by pretty much everything. It tells you a little bit of lore about a person who ruled the land and built this thing to worship the dragon we just killed. And then the dragon woke up and pretty much destroyed everything. I mean, who would have guessed? It's a dragon. And they say that all this happened so long ago, nobody even remembers his name. As to why the dragon has a spear in its chest, that's because there's another section of the story where some guy came along, heard about this dragon, said, I'm gonna go kill that dragon, and then he wounded him, and then the dragon, you know, didn't die, obviously. The dude died, so he failed. And that's just a little fun story on that boss. So with that being done, Crown of the Sunken King is finished. Which means next video will be Crown of the Iron King. I intend to play these in order. And that DLC is somewhat difficult too. They're all supposed to be difficult. I find Ivory King a little less difficult, I think. But they're all pretty difficult. And the final boss for Iron King is probably one of the most failed bosses ever in Dark Souls. I think they said that he was the most failed in this once the DLCs came out and everything, so we're going to have a lot of fun. But with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.